Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is the Sage Dynamics Edition rifle from Sons of Liberty GunWorks. As many of you probably know, I had a long and very fruitful relationship with primary weapon systems. However, all good things must come to an end. While we still have a really good relationship, I was seeking a company that would do a couple of things for me. I wanted a more symbiotic relationship. I wanted something a little bit more personable, and I wanted a company especially that was way more passionate about Second Amendment rights. And I found all of those things with Sons of Liberty GunWorks. And it only makes sense that if I'm going to align myself with a company and develop a really strong relationship with a company, the guys over at Sons of Liberty like Mike and Kyle, I find myself becoming really, really good friends with them because I love that they're passionate. They're not just another company out there that supports the Second Amendment, but supports the Second Amendment. I was looking for a company that was more actively involved, and that's definitely something I'm getting. But it only makes sense that if you have that kind of relationship, then you should put that kind of relationship and that kind of like-mindedness into a product that's going to reflect that relationship. And that's where we get the Sage Dynamics Edition rifle. Aside from the activism and things I believe to be recognized natural rights, the intellect when it comes to the AR platform at Sons of Liberty GunWorks is unrivaled. And I'd be willing to argue that point with many, many people. I don't think I've met a person and been able to talk to a person who's more knowledgeable off the top of his head about the intricacies of the AR platform, getting it to run exactly how you want it to run, than Mike Michalski is. It's just impressive the amount of knowledge he brings to the table in just casual conversations. So when we actually sat down and decided to build the Sage Dynamics gun, I pretty much said what I wanted it to do, and he immediately knew the features that needed to go into it. There was no, I'll get back to you, there was no research. It was just like, it needs this size gas port for this size barrel with this gas system, with this buffer system, all built around the aesthetics, because aesthetics are going to be a thing. The aesthetics that we went with was, of course, OD green. Aesthetics are basically the culmination of all the parts we put into the rifle. We went with a 12.5 inch with a carbine length gas system. Just the way that the gas port is sized, the carbine length system is going to allow the rifle to be more reliable over a wider spectrum of ammunition and suppressors that you may put on it. If you don't like to, it comes with a Knox muzzle device, which is kind of set up for dead air or dead air type chemo. Any kind of suppressor would accept the key mod quick detach. So if that's not something you want, you change out the muzzle device for like a Surefire or an OSS or whatever. It needed to work reliably. So we chose the gas system with that barrel length for that specific gas port size in order to give us that functionality. Adding to that functionality is the venerable Voltor A5 buffer system, which gives me one of the flattest rifles I've ever shot. Granted, muzzle device is a factor in that, gas length, gas port size is a factor in that, but the A5 just runs the gun flat, and it feels dependable, it feels reliable. And I know that's kind of a nebulous thing to say, but you can actually feel that bolt carrier group moving basically like a shuttle back and forth. It's just, well, you can set your watch to it. It's ridiculously smooth, and that's something that you really get from DI, and you really get from the right relationship between gas system, gas port size, bolt carrier group, and buffer system, that it's very hard to find, and it takes someone super knowledgeable to get it to work right reliably across a wide spectrum of rifles. The barrel specifically, we went with the Roscoe CMV, which is 4150 and 12.5. I like the 12.5 barrel length because it gives me a lot of that velocity that I might otherwise lose if I go shorter. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with a 10.5 or an 11.3 or an 11.5. I think 12.5 just provides a very good intermediate barrel length for intermediate distances. It's of course going to work well really up close, but you're still going to maintain that velocity for some of those more extended distances, and it leaves accuracy less of a guessing game if you want to shoot out to 150, 200, 250, even 300 yards. Well, a 12.5 barrel is definitely capable of doing it. We paired that with the 11.5 inch M76 rail from Sons of Liberty GunWorks. Initially it's offered as a complete rifle, however you will be able to purchase soon, if not already by the time you're watching this video, standalone upper groups that are upper receivers, complete upper receivers are going to come in anodized black. To keep costs low but still give you a dependable trigger, we went with Geisley's G2S, which is one of my favorite two-stage triggers that are out there. I don't see a significant difference in performance between it and some of the more higher-end two stages that Geisley offers, and I'm sure some people that are Geisley purists don't want to hear that. But it's a trigger that I'd be more than happy to throw into a general use rifle like this, a hard use rifle that's going to serve a lot of different roles or capable of serving in a lot of different roles, or a precision gun. I'd have no problem throwing this in a 16-inch gun that I'm going to shoot out to 500 or 800 meters on the 5.56 cartridge, or throw it in an AR-10 and maybe reach out a little further. Went with an Ambi Raptor charging handle as well as Ambi safety selector because some people just love ambidextrous controls. I personally don't really need them or care for them, but I also understand that even though it's my edition rifle, I have to provide some features that the customer may want, and I definitely know there's a lot of people that love Ambi selectors and Ambi charging handles, so there you go. We went with those particular ones to keep the costs low again. And finally, you're getting some rail scales panels and a rail scales carves hand stop included in the rifle. I feel like grip is great. That's a really good thing. We've kind of come full circle as far as that goes. Like we went to, really big vertical foregrips and then shorter foregrips and then angled foregrips. And now we're kind of back to slick rails or even a hand stop. And the carve has been my favorite hand stop ever since, well, I first got introduced to rail scales with their initial hand stop offerings, and they just keep making things that appeal to me. And I like a very simplistic, very lightweight hand stop, and one that's going to be durable enough to be used as a barricade stop. And even though this is a polymer hand stop, you can abuse it, or I should say use it hard, and it's still going to work really well. We chose the Nox muzzle device mainly because it's a really good relationship between Dead Air and Sons of Liberty GunWorks, but also because I'm a big fan of Dead Air suppressors. So having one of their muzzle devices on my guns, their flash hider has pretty much been my favorite, which is a well-defended title, but my favorite flash hider muzzle device for a long time. So the Nox takes the same attributes that we get from their traditional flash hider and adds in a little bit of brake-like behavior for helping keep the muzzle flat, but not so much so that you're actually shooting negative recoil, because some muzzle devices overcompensate with the gases and they actually drive the muzzle just slightly or sometimes extremely below where you want to shoot, and you have to bring the gun back up slightly, which slows down your time on target. Sometimes it's not so noticeable. You got to put it on slow motion camera to see it. For me, the Nox, with my style of shooting, even when I'm running the gun really quick, it brings the muzzle down, but it doesn't bring it below or dramatically below where I want the dot or the reticle, if you will, to come back to. So the Nox device, even without a suppressor on it, is not just a, throw it on the gun and they'll change it out to whatever they want. We didn't want to include this thing with a traditional bird cage. We wanted to give you a good muzzle device right out of the gate. As far as stock goes, it's coming as a pistol, so you're getting it with a pistol brace. We went with the SB Tactical SBA3. I like that one a little bit more than some of the other offerings. Of course, you may not prefer it, and that's fine. You can swap it out for the A4 or some other brand entirely, and that's perfectly fine. If you're not going to SBR it, then of course you want to use the pistol brace you're going to use. Me personally, anything I get as a pistol eventually becomes an SBR, so the pistol brace use is temporary, if you will. But even though that's kind of the approach I take to things, I wanted to make sure that we included it with a brace that's going to last for quite some time. Unless, of course, like I said, you want to replace it with something that you're already, you already like more. The overall intent behind the Sage Dynamics rifle was to create a workhorse. That's why we chose the components that we chose. That's why we chose the barrel that we chose. We wanted a rifle that is going to go to work, something you're going to shoot a couple thousand rounds a year through, something you're going to take to end a barrel life and then throw a new barrel in it and keep going, something you're going to wear out extractors and you're going to wear out springs, and you're going to wear out trigger springs, and you're going to wear out parts and have to replace them because the rifle gets used as often as you're able to shoot it. But it also has the reliability of being fired just a couple hundred times a year and still being able to work right out of the safe or right out of the closet or right over wherever you happen to keep it for your self-defense purposes. That's the whole idea behind the rifle, is to give you a reliable workhorse regardless of what you do with it. Can you shoot out to 300-400 yards accurately? Absolutely. My personal Sage rifle shoots sub-MOA. That's exactly what we want out of a gun, and it's a little unheard of for a quote-unquote rat grade or workhorse gun to be capable of that. With the right ammunition paired with the right shooter, you're going to get just under an inch at 100 meters, 100 yards, which is, I think, awesome, not only for a rifle to be capable of doing that, but a 12.5. Sons also went with known materials, parts, and components to give you a rifle that's going to run across a wide degree of ammunition in situations that you're going to put the rifle through. So again, and this is something I've said with other products that carry my name, I've always believed that you have only one opportunity to ruin your reputation. So there's no way in hell I would pair myself with a product or a company that was going to do that. Certainly not knowingly. So if I'm putting my name on something, it's because we've sat down, we've talked about it, we've discussed the components that are going to go into it, and we're going to make sure it's going to have the reliability and the performance that I would expect out of any rifle that I'd personally carry. And all of this is tied up with Sons of Liberty's amazing warranty service. Very often I see situations where someone has an issue or they have a question, more likely a question than an issue, because Sons rifles don't really have too many issues to be talked about. But somebody will have a specific question about why Sons of Liberty does something, and it's very common to see Mike Michalski or one of the other guys at Sons be like, hey, here's my number, just text me or call me, and I'll walk you through why we do what we do. That, I wouldn't say is unheard of, but it's super rare. As these gun companies get bigger and bigger, you start to lose that personal touch. Unless you're in the industry, it's very hard for you to know someone who works for Glock or for Smith & Wesson or for Ruger or for any of these companies. So there's always that risk that if somebody gets too large, they lose that personal fire and that personal interest in the customer manufacturer relationship. And that's something that I don't really see Sons of Liberty really risking losing at all. And it's definitely a relationship that I plan on building on. My personal feeling is like, I never wanted to represent a company just for the sake of representing a company. I wanted there to be a perfect amalgamation of mentality and philosophy behind whatever we do together, and that's something I'm definitely getting from Sons of Liberty GunWorks. If you're interested in finding out more about this rifle, you can check it out on the internet. Some of the retailers that commonly have them in stock will be Palm Beach Tactical and Big Tex Outdoors, as well as some of the other shops maybe local to you. If you're in Texas, there's quite a few spots that have ordered them. They are in high demand right now, which is, I think, is partly because of the current political climate we're in, and partly because maybe people want a Sage Dynamics Edition rifle in OD green. I hope it's both. But don't worry, this is not a limited run kind of thing. We'll continue to produce these rifles for as long as people want them. I'm Aaron Count with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.